There are 19 data streams that go into content power ratings, and what it says is there's still tremendous equity in the program. What's important to note about American Idol is it's much more than just the viewership that's important with the show. It's about the music downloads that take place on iTunes. It's about the concert series that takes place after the show. There really is interest and involvement on many levels with the property, and that's why it's so appealing to advertisers as well. We know that reality programming, in particular voting off shows, so competitions tend to do very well within content power ratings, more so in the interactive kind of component than just in the traditional television viewership. Shows that have kind of a thriller hook, The Walking Dead and Dexter's tend to do pretty well on those parameters as well, because viewers, whereas water cooler used to take place the next day for these shows, it now takes place in real-time behavior. We also see a big pop with comedies. So a lot of animated comedies tend to do relatively well within content power ratings because of the virality that takes place online and via mobile platforms. So you're seeing shows like South Park do very well within the content power ratings. Really the important thing to note is that content is ubiquitous today. The important value to place upon content is by looking at it within three buckets. Looking at the total viewership cross-platform, looking at the engagement or the involvement that the consumer has with that content, and then looking at the behavior that results from watching and commenting on it, so the advocacy that comes out of that content. And with that, you can determine what content is the most relevant to both viewers and advertisers today. Our philosophy is that there's not one data stream that ultimately can measure all of these different barometers. And so we collect the best of what is available of that year. And most of the data streams stay consistent year over year. But every year, just as the technologies change, also there are new methodologies that are introduced into the marketplace. So we start with a base of where we were in previous years. We use Nielsen to measure television viewing. We use comScore to measure online viewership. But then we start introducing new factors and new trends. We measure from Google Analytics. We measure the amount of visits to the or searches that take place within Google. We measure the clout influence that takes place in Twitter and Facebook. We measure the number of Facebook likes. And then this year we introduced two new social measures, again trying to really get under the curtain of the efficacy of the social efforts. We looked at two factors, one being Bluefin, which today is the leader in social amplification and understanding the chatter that takes place within 3 hours of viewership. And then the second barometer that we looked at was GetGlue check-ins, and GetGlue today is still the #1 check-in service and has the most robust data within that marketplace. And that helps us to understand the intensity of viewership, the intensity of the fan base within certain shows. Well, this is the year that the industry is coining the term social TV. What that means is that you're starting to see mass penetration of social behavior. So if you take a look at the trends of tablet penetration and smartphone penetration, they are dramatically on the rise. But not only are they being used in isolation, they're being used while viewers are watching television programs. And so what it means is it's important to evaluate that interaction that takes place between that viewership on the television platform and between that interactive behavior that takes place on the smartphone and the mobile platform. When Optimedia is crafting deals on behalf of our clients, we want to be associated with programs that are engaging and of which the content tends to go viral and tends to spur advocacy, because in essence the reason why an advertiser would associate with content is they want that equity rub-off of that content. Content power ratings enables us to measure all of those factors with respect to the programming that's on television. The question won't be, will social media drive television viewership? It will be, does social media drive viewership in totality on mobile, on tablet, etc. So I think that's one thing that we're going to be looking towards. The second is we're going to be looking at the overall profitability of these particular shows cross-platform. So is it a barometer if a show ultimately is canceled by a network and then picked up by another distributor, as is taking place these days with DirecTV and with Netflix and Amazon, etc.? understanding how profitable a show can be if it continues to have a social base. Also looking at the other extensions than the licensing and the syndication that can take place from as a result of the continuing kind of social behavior is something that we're going to be looking at. So I think to boil it down twofold, really understand viewing in totality cross-platform from this is one area that we're going to be paying attention to. And the second is really understanding the profitability of these shows as it exists in ancillary forms of media and ancillary businesses.